In the past, the tradition was that the bride's family actually paid for most of the wedding. That's not how it is anymore. The rules of wedding planning have really changed, and oftentimes, as we're seeing couples getting married later in life, they're actually paying for a lot of the wedding themselves. Getting contributions from family members is still very common, but not as expected. Take into consideration your living expenses, your savings, how much debt you currently have, whether that's a mortgage or student loans. You don't want to overspend when it comes to your wedding day. The third thing you really need to hone in on is your guest count. This is the single biggest factor that's going to impact your wedding budget. Most of the vendors that you're going to reach out to are going to ask you, how many guests are you expecting? Most of the elements of your wedding are actually variable pricing based on head count. So things like food and beverage, florals, rentals, the venue size, they're all going to be dependent on how many people are attending. So build your guest list with your A list, your top priority people, and your B list that you'd love for them to be there, but you could live without them. The next thing you need to consider when setting your budget is what is important to you. Set your priorities. What are your non-negotiables? This is a conversation you want to have with your partner. Think about what's important to you. If you guys are big foodies, maybe you want to splurge on catering. If you're really into partying and you want to have a killer after party, maybe you're going to opt for a band versus a DJ. First, prioritize what's important to you and list them 1 to 5, 5 being the most important. This will help you figure out where to spend your budget. The next thing to consider when setting up your budget is to start doing research. If you've narrowed down 1 or 2 general areas that you're thinking about getting married, start doing research about how much it costs for specific vendors and venues in that area. Pricing is dependent on geography. Is that area densely populated? Are there tons of vendors there? Is there high demand? All of those things are gonna impact the cost for you to have your wedding there. Also consider what kind of resources and vendors that you wanna work with. If you are dead set on having a wedding planner, you should look at your different options for how much they're gonna cost. You can start with as low as a day of coordinator all the way through a full service creative director and design planner. Once you've done the research and you figured out how much people are contributing and how much you're willing to pay, it's time to actually crunch the numbers. We've provided you with a budget template. It's an Excel spreadsheet that you can download and begin to put your inputs in. Simply download the spreadsheet and add the wedding budget that you're starting with. In the spreadsheet, you have the ability to prioritize certain categories of your wedding. It'll spit out the general template and then you can adjust it from there. If things aren't lining up, you may need to revisit some of your priorities. A lot of couples get really excited to start planning their wedding, and as soon as they start actually talking to vendors and doing some wedding shopping, they oftentimes forget their budget completely. It is super critical that you maintain and stick to your wedding budget. If you decide that there's a must-have that just popped up, you're gonna have to pull that budget from somewhere else. It's really easy to pull out a credit card or open a new one and start charging it up. But I can assure you, after your wedding day, you're gonna wish that you were a little bit more conservative.